Renee had been on her feet for 11 hours. Her shoes had a hole in the left sole. She'd stuffed a folded napkin inside that morning so the cold tile wouldn't bleed through. She was 3 months behind on rent. Her mother was in a hospital 2 states away, tubes, machines, a phone call Renee couldn't afford to make every day. She hadn't eaten since 6 a.m. A bread roll she'd slipped into her apron pocket between tables. But every single customer who sat in her section that night got a warm smile. A remembered order. A small joke about the weather. Renee didn't have much. But she had her dignity. And she had spent 23 years quietly, faithfully protecting it. She had no idea that tonight, a man in a $10,000 suit was about to try to take it from her. But before we get to what happened at that table, you need to understand exactly who Renee Mitchell was. Because what she did that night wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was 11 years of quiet preparation meeting one very wrong man. And he had no idea what was coming. Renee Mitchell had been a waitress at Harbor Grill for 11 years. She knew every table by number. Every regular by name. She knew that Mr. Henderson at table 4 took his coffee with exactly 1.5 sugars, and that the young couple at table 9 always split the salmon because they couldn't afford 2 plates but were too proud to say so. She never made them feel small about it. That was Renee. She had grown up in Dayton, Ohio. Middle child of 5. Her father worked the line at a tire factory until his back gave out. Her mother cleaned offices downtown before her knees did the same. Renee had watched both of her parents wear themselves down to nothing serving other people. And she had followed them into it anyway. Not because she had no options. Because she was good at it. What the other staff didn't know, what Renee never talked about at the break table, was that she spoke 4 languages. English. French. Mandarin. And the Portuguese her grandmother had whispered to her every summer in the small house on Clement Street. She had studied linguistics at Ohio State for 2 years before the money ran out. No drama. No breakdown. She simply packed her books, picked up a serving apron, and kept moving. She sent $400 home every month without fail. Even the months it meant she ate rice and eggs for 2 weeks straight. Tonight was a Thursday. Slow start. The dinner rush hadn't hit yet. Renee refilled the salt shakers at every table, humming quietly to herself. She had no idea that in 40 minutes, a black car with foreign plates would pull up outside. And everything she had quietly carried for 11 years was about to matter. What Renee didn't know, what nobody in that restaurant knew, was that the black car pulling up outside carried a man worth hundreds of millions of dollars. A man who had never once been corrected in his life. That was about to change. In the most unexpected way possible. The black car stopped directly in front of Harbor Grill at 7:43 p.m. A man stepped out first. Mid-50s. Sharp gray suit. The kind that didn't come off a rack. He had the walk of someone who had never once been told to wait, shoulders back, chin slightly elevated, eyes scanning a room before his body fully entered it. His name was Victor Hesse. German-born. International real estate. A man whose net worth had 7 commas and whose patience had none. He was in the city for exactly 36 hours to close a $200 million acquisition. His assistant had booked Harbor Grill because it was close to the hotel. That was the only reason. To Victor, this place was invisible. A pit stop. An inconvenience dressed as a restaurant. He sat down without looking at the menu. 2 associates settled in beside him. They spoke to each other in rapid German, laughing at something Victor said. One of them glanced at Renee as she approached and looked away just as fast. The way people look away from furniture. Renee smiled anyway. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Harbor Grill. Can I start you off with something to drink? Victor didn't look up. He said something to his associates in German. Sharp. Dismissive. The kind of sentence that lands like a small slap. His associate smirked. Renee kept her smile in place. She had seen dismissal before. She had learned to let it pass through her like wine through a screen door. What she didn't do, what she never did, was shrink. She stood with her notepad open and her pen ready, and she waited with the quiet patience of someone who had nothing to prove. At the bar, a young busboy named Cole watched the whole exchange. 19 years old. First month on the job. He looked at Renee with wide eyes, waiting to see what she would do. He would remember this night for the rest of his life. Victor Hesse had dismissed 100 people in 100 rooms across 6 countries. He had never once been wrong about who mattered and who didn't. But tonight, at a corner table in a quiet restaurant, he was about to make the most expensive mistake of his life. And Renee hadn't even opened her mouth yet. Victor Hesse ordered without looking at her. He pointed at 2 items on the menu, still speaking in German to his associates, and slid the menu to the edge of the table the way you slide a plate to a dog. Renee wrote the order down calmly. She brought the drinks. She brought the bread basket. She refilled the water without being asked. Victor didn't acknowledge her once. Then the food arrived. Renee set Victor's plate down carefully, precisely, the way she set every plate down. She announced each dish in the quiet professional tone she had used for 11 years. Victor looked at his plate. Then he looked up at his associate and said something in German. The associate laughed. Covered his mouth. Looked away. The other one shook his head, still smiling. Renee stood perfectly still. She understood every word. Victor had said, in German, casually, the way you comment on weather, that the waitress had the look of a woman who had given up on her life. That her smile was the smile of someone who had accepted defeat. That people like her were useful precisely because they expected nothing. The table laughed again. Renee did not move. She did not flush. Did not clench her jaw. Did not let her eyes go sharp the way they wanted to. She simply looked at Victor Hesse with the same calm, open expression she had worn all evening. And then she replied. In perfect, unaccented German. I hope the food meets your expectations, sir. And I hope that whatever is so heavy on your mind tonight becomes a little lighter before you sleep. The table went silent. Victor's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. His associate looked up slowly. The other one blinked. Nobody laughed. Victor stared at her. For the first time all evening, he actually looked at her. Not through her. Not past her. At her. Like a man who had just realized he'd been speaking in what he thought was an empty room. At the bar, Cole had stopped wiping glasses entirely. His mouth was open. Renee simply tucked her notepad under her arm, smiled once more, genuine, unhurried, undefeated, and walked back toward the kitchen. The table went completely silent. Victor's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Because in 20 years of international business, nobody had ever spoken back to him like that. Not a CEO. Not a lawyer. Not a diplomat. A waitress from Dayton, Ohio just did what none of them dared to. And what happened next, nobody saw coming. The kitchen door swung shut behind Renee. She stood with her back against the cold steel prep table and exhaled once. Long and slow. Marco, the head cook, looked up from the grill. You okay? Fine, Renee said. And she meant it. She picked up the next order ticket and went back to work. What happened next took 11 minutes. Victor Hesse sat at table 7 in complete silence. The easy arrogance that had walked through the front door with him had quietly left the building. He turned his water glass in slow circles on the tablecloth. Then he asked the hostess to send the waitress back to his table. Renee came back the same way she always came back. Steady. Unhurried. Is everything all right with your meal, sir? Where did you learn to speak German like that? I studied languages, Renee said simply. Can I get you anything else? Sit down. I'm working, sir. I know. A pause. Please. Renee sat down. Straight-backed. Composed. I was rude to you, Victor said. Yes, Renee said. You were. You didn't react. Reacting was your job tonight, she said. Not mine. Victor studied her the way he studied contracts. Looking for the thing underneath the thing. Why are you here, he asked. Genuinely. Because this is where I am right now. And I'm good at it. And that's enough. Victor reached into his jacket and placed a business card on the table. I run a European acquisitions firm across 6 countries. I've been searching for a client liaison, someone who moves between languages and cultures without losing the human element. I have interviewed 23 candidates in 4 months. He paused. None of them had what you showed me tonight. What did I show you? Dignity, he said quietly. Under pressure. That is rarer than any language. Renee picked up the card. She didn't say yes that night. She finished her shift. Refilled Mr. Henderson's coffee. Checked on the couple at table 9. Clocked out at 11:15 p.m. But she kept the card. 6 weeks later, Renee Mitchell boarded a flight to Frankfurt. Business class. Window seat. A carry-on bag with 4 language dictionaries, their spines cracked from years of use. She left Cole, the wide-eyed busboy, a handwritten note that said, "Stay curious. It compounds, Within a year she was managing client relations across 3 countries. Within 2, she had negotiated major deals entirely in Mandarin. Within 3, her mother was living in a quiet house in Portland with a garden and no stairs. The hole in her left shoe became a story she told at dinner tables in Berlin, Paris, and Shanghai. Every time she told it, people leaned in closer. Victor Hesse never spoke carelessly in front of staff again. Not because he was told to. Because he had learned, at a corner table on an ordinary Thursday evening, that the most dangerous person in any room is the one you decided wasn't worth noticing. Renee Mitchell had always known 4 languages. It just took the right moment for the world to finally listen. Never underestimate the person standing in front of you. Quiet people are not empty people. Some of them are simply waiting for the moment the world is ready to hear them.